La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti tutti quanti. Welcome everybody. This is Fabrizio from Toronto with my best buddy
Matt, live from New York. I've done that again.
That's all right. So this is La Lanterna podcast, and it's actually episode 49, Matt.
That's right.
This is like a champagne moment because even though we're calling it number 49, because our first episode was called episode 0 or pilot episode, this is the 50th.
That's crazy. That's unbelievable.
We started almost, not as a joke, but like...
Kind of.
Okay.
There.
Two dudes that got put together by Stefano, which bailed on us today, by the way.
Calcio.
Once again.
One of the most fun things about this podcast is just being able to be more ingrained, I think, with, for lack of a better phrase, I guess, like the broader calcio community. You know, like we're meeting fans who are very passionate about their clubs, no matter where they are, people who are following different levels of Italian football. And it's I think, kind of unique because at least around here, you normally go to the pub and you'll find people who are supporting kind of more or less the usual suspects. And hey, I can't judge that. I'm an Arsenal supporter too. But at the end of the day, like it's interesting when you meet people that have this different kind of experience and understanding of football and what it means, because I just think there's something very special in the history of some of these clubs and just the dedication of being a fan, regardless of big names or huge transfer budgets or whatever.
You talked about Arsenal. I know you are an Arsenal fan, but are we going to become Everton fans as well?
Well, I cannot, but I guess we should address this. So this is crazy, by the way. So there are rumors
I'm
about
loving it, by the way. Sorry,
going back to January, right? I think when there were some rumors for some time about 777 becoming at least a partial owner of Everton, and the most recent news, which is all over, I think everywhere today, actually, is that they're one step closer to becoming the controlling owner of Everton, which I think, by the way, is super remarkable, actually, because I think there have been a lot of different groups that have been linked with them. Of course, a very old, famous club in England. If some folks are more familiar, they've been moving away from their old, it's almost like I understand it anyway, to be almost like the football version of Wrigley Field or Fenway Park or something, Goodison Park, with the old beams in between the seats and all this stuff, but tons of character, blah, blah, blah. But they're on their way out of that stadium into this shiny new stadium on the port, which is already broken ground. And so all this stuff happens. They're literally taking over right when that project is really beginning. I think actually is the current timeline is for that stadium to be in use in the 24-25 season, if I'm not. So ton of stuff going on there. I think it's crazy. The most disorienting thing as a Genoa fan is this news just seems to happen so fast. Like Genoa, we knew about Genoa, obviously. Before us, it was Sevilla, actually. I think they had a minority ownership in Sevilla. And then obviously all the other kind of things happen. You have Vasco, you have Liège, you've got Red Star, the Melbourne Victory come into the equation. And then, all of a sudden Hertha Berlin come into the equation, and that's like significant.
It's huge again.
And then Everton, and it's just like, holy shit. Because also there's like a lot of conversation too. Hertha have long been trying to get out of their stadium because the Olympiastadion is another one that it's a very famous setting, but the track is too big and the supporters' atmosphere isn't what it could be, and it's a little bit far. Well, I guess it's not that far away from where the town center is or whatever, but it just feels like a lot of undertaking. I don't know how to respond to all this stuff. It's a lot of action in not very much time, and it's only, I guess it's been a full year since they've took over, more than, but still it feels like this is a lot of stuff to be happening in less than 2 years time of them owning club. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. You know way more than I do, or more so on the Bundesliga and the EPL. I'm looking at the standings right now. Everton is on the edge of the relegation.
Yes, which is crazy.
Like, from my understanding, it's like one of the older ones. I don't know. I'm appalled, but pleased at the same time. We've always read and heard a clip a few episodes back from Wanderers that he was saying that we're not like that type of the main team and then all the other ones below it. We're all unique and they're going to support each other. And so the more to it, the better. It still will be interesting that one day, if ever, especially in the European side, anyways, for us.
Oh, well, yeah.
If we ever had to compete against each other, I don't know how that would work. But I'm sure there are certain, I don't know. What do you think?
I can't remember who had raised this in our last conversation, but it definitely feels maybe Alex from
London. Yeah. Alex Pugno.
Yes. But it's crazy because it's really not that unlikely. Like when you take these clubs, like they all in the last 10 years have been in Europe. Some of them are like Standard Liège, like are one of the most dominant clubs in Belgium. They're almost surely going to be in the Champions League or the Europa League every single year, or maybe both if they manage to lose in the round or something like that. Of course, we would need to be in that echelon as well, but I would have to think that that's their objective for these clubs. You can kind of see their ownership strategy is relatively consistent. I think they're going after clubs that typically have a very long heritage and history. They're almost always in clubs that are in at least marketable locations, perhaps portside towns, places of historical import, places maybe people are traveling. You can tell there's something in common with the ownership clusters and everything else that's happening. And that's all great. Like, I think those are things, who's to say, if they think Everton's a marketable place, like think Genoa's a marketable place, doesn't really matter. But you just hope mainly that they don't get in over their head and to the point where they can't really fiscally support these clubs anymore, which I don't think is going to be the case. I really have faith that hopefully this, this structure and this plan has a real meaning to it. I do ascribe to the fact or the idea, if we are to get to a place where we're playing each other in Europe, that would be a problem. But in our circumstance anyway, that would be a good problem to have because we've not had European football in some time. So let's first focus on getting to that level. And then if we need to campaign for Wander to sell the club immediately or something, we can do that after that has happened. I guess it's encouraging. It's exciting. It's interesting.
It's exciting. It's exciting fact of from the old style of ownership from even back, I'm thinking about Fossati back from the 70s and 80s, all the way to Spinelli. I'm not going to even mention the runs in between there. Then Preziosi. And now finally get rid of, I'm sorry if I say this, forgive me, Italians that really don't want to hear it, but got rid of that Italian style old ownership, which we still see a few teams that are still in Serie A, in Serie B anyways, that type of style, which will never die, I think. But at the same time, we're seeing more and more foreign ownership. It's overdue and it's happening. And I'm glad that we're part of that. Right now, it's not seen as the major group because we're not the city group. We're not the Red Bull, Reinforced Red Bull, and so on. Do we want to be called Genoa Red Bull? No, we never wanted that. Did we want to be like a satellite small team under the city group? Absolutely not. So I think, and I'm hoping that this 777 story is going to become what we're all hoping for.
I think their plan is also unique too, because I can't recall any other ownership group that does have, I would call it, maybe sounds silly to say marquee, but I really do think that you have, if Everton does go through, you have Everton, you have Hertha, who have been kind of like this big question mark because they always should be maybe more competitive than they actually are. But the only real traditional club representing Berlin, you have Union Berlin, who have become sort of this hipster fun club that a lot of people like to root for and everything. But Hertha have been that side for a long, long time and had represented that club for that city for a while. So you have, those two names. You have Genoa, the oldest club in Italy, is part of this constellation. It's a really interesting kind of collection of clubs. And so my thing was, when this first broke, the first thing, if I'm honest, I thought about was, oh shit, he's going to spend all his time in Everton because it's project.
That's what everybody's saying.
It's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money.
Great. That brings in cash flow to the group, right? Having said that, I don't want to go there. I don't want to think that way. So I still want to think that everybody's equal, maybe some more, maybe some less. No offense to Melbourne Victory, and I should probably even say it, but obviously there is less impact, less shiny around that team compared to Everton, based on the league, based on a whole bunch of things. I was looking at Hertha, most likely they'll be relegated. I'm just trying to see some analogies here. Red Star, I think they're in the second division, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Everton, they're close to being relegated as well. Genoa, even though when they did get them, they were on the lower side. They took over. It's interesting where they get these teams that are struggling. Perhaps it's a good way to get in because you get the deal of someone that wants out. And then from there, they build it up.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like intentionally what they're trying to do. I mean, I suppose they would have always known. I mean, obviously right now at this time of the season, making a final push for Everton. And of course, Hertha have been struggling for many seasons and we're looking this way. Also, it's not a surprise where they are right now on the table. Perhaps they are doing that. I don't know. But I mean, you're right. Like we don't really know exactly what this means. I will say I have a kind of I think the ownership relationship to fans, you want an owner to really be there every match with the sweater with the crest on over his heart and all this other stuff. But I think realistically what we want is we want to have a budget to support our sports director and our manager in charge, and we want to have results. And if those things are happening and they're happening in a way that is financially stable for the club, then great.
Okay, so we didn't even talking about the match from last week, but let's get to it right now. So we just saw, well, not just because we're recording obviously on Monday. Perhaps it'll go out on Wednesday. I'm not too sure, but we had a great match against Cittadella. Well, great
in terms of results. Yes.
An away match. Very delicate. What's your take on the match?
I thought that, and this is really more a matter of fact than it is anything else. The red card, of course, completely changed the match, I think. For me, watching the first half, it was sort of an interesting first half. It felt to me like Cittadella were much more in this match than I kind of expected them to be. I thought they had their moments, they had their counterattacks, their chances. They had some pretty good chances, I might add. There were a lot of fouls and yellows given. There were actually 4 yellows handed out. In fact, a second one was handed out to Giraudo, which ultimately led to him being sent off in the 43rd minute. I'm sure I kind of butchered that pronunciation.
Giraudo.
Yeah, Giraudo. You almost kind of want to say, yeah. But anyway, for me, I thought in the end, we were pretty more or less methodical with that advantage. I thought we made good use of it in the second half. I thought we, of course, were the stronger team in that period of the game. There were definitely several moments where I felt like, oh my God, after we'd rotated some of their players, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, how do we not put that chance away? How do we not make that pass? Puskas. Thank you. Unbelievably bad performance. It's just like I don't want to shit on our players or anything, but like, man, that's easily the worst I've seen him play all year for us. So I think like on the whole, job done. It's a match away from home. I think it's a fair result in the end. I was encouraged a little bit about Draguš, actually. So one of the guys that came in, he was weirdly, I think you rightly commented this because I think they put him on for Mimo when they subbed him on, which was like
bizarre, right?
He's going to play a left wing back or a left back. Like this guy's he's a forward. And actually, I think you saw Gila react to that because I recall he put another defensive player in and then you started to see him. But he had some pretty brave attempts at goal. He was involved and we haven't seen a lot from him this season. So I was kind of excited to see that. Was there anything that stood out to you in the match or anything you were kind of encouraged by?
I did a deep down analysis of the match, a little bit in honor of our friend Jake, but at the same time, so shout out to Città Calcio USA. This was one of the first games that Genoa had trouble in the first half, for sure, under the Gilardino era, at least to this level. And I'm not even going to talk about the Parma match because I think that was a fluke, meaning that we felt a little bit, as you said, rightfully so in your comment, where Cittadella turned out to be not what we were expecting them to be.
Yeah.
But as strong as a mature team that Genoa is, they took advantage of their mistakes. And at the end, we won against them. And that's basically the gist of what I saw from the match.
Yeah.
The victory puts us in the second spot. We'll talk about the standings afterwards, but right now we are 2 points to the leaders with 4 matches left. And after the match that also happened, Pisa against Bari at Pisa. Again, I'm not going to talk about that yet, but Frosinone had tied with Südtirol, our next opponent. So that brings us to 2 points.
Big result.
Huge. So if there is still a fight to catch the second spot for the direct promotion, for Bari to do their colpaccio or lucky punch, as we say in Italian, there's still 6 points that divide the two of us. Cittadella, on the other hand, all the teams at the bottom are all alive. They all made points except them, which brought them down to the playouts.
Wow.
Cosenza in this moment are safe. Cittadella, as I said, would face the playouts. I think that under the emotional aspect, Cittadella is still alive. They have not been getting any wins. The last time that they won was in February 25th against Ternana, which was that famous match led Andreazzoli to resign to bring Lucarelli back. It was to keep Ternana still on the map of Serie B. Otherwise, they were like on a deep dive. I was surprised already when he got sacked in the first place. But anyways, in this match, Cittadella in the first minutes, mostly in the first half, put Genoa in a very drastic difficulty, to the point of a lot of chances, nothing clear to the goal, even though there was a couple of saves by Martinez, mind you. And I still think that a lot of people were like freaked out on a couple of things that he did, especially one pass in the back. I think it was from Bani or Vogliacco. It went back a little bit too strong, in my opinion, but it was scary from a Genoa's perspective. But at the same time, the coolness that Martinez had to kind of dribble away from the forward and then pass it on to Dragusin. It was just like, okay, what's going on? No big deal.
I remember that play actually pretty well. And there was some poise there. There were a couple of moments that were kind of uncharacteristically shaky from Martinez in the match. But to your point, he responded to those kind of lapses, I guess you might call them, by being very reassuring. In that one instance, very much calmly kind of dribbling away from the danger and continuing to move the ball forward. I think there was another moment I can't recall right now off the top of my head, but I'm with you on the analysis of the match. I think at the end of the day, you have to look at it as this. Like, we're going away from home, playing a side that absolutely must win a match. To be fair, Genoa do need to continue to win and win and win as much as possible, but I don't necessarily think the pressure on the team's back was the same that would have been on Cittadella's, where they're really fighting for survival right now. Maybe you can debate that.
And that's why I applaud them, because I think that they did a very, I would say, a bold choice with respect to the forward. They were very forward-looking as a team. They had Crociata, they had Antonucci, and a superb Ambrosino. Ambrosino is a player from Napoli that was lent off to Como, didn't get a lot of room. Then they decided to move him to Cittadella. And the few times that he was playing with Cittadella, he's showing that he's a great player. He was probably the best player for Cittadella. Hence, when all this issue, yes, sure, you are right that the changes also happened because of the red card, and I'll get to that in a second. But the drastic change also happened when Ambrosino came off the pitch, and that's where Cittadella started to not be as strong as they were before. What I wanted to say was essentially that they were blocking all our actions, and I think that essentially we talked a little bit before going on air. Cittadella, and I'm sorry, Jake, if I say this, but Cittadella is known that has a clear characteristic. It's not mainly because they're super foulish, even though they do a lot of fouls, but their strategy is and this is mentioned by also a lot of critics, is to block the actions on counterattack. It's called, quote unquote, I'm using the fingers here, tactical foul, to block those actions where the opponent has gained the ball and is going on an offensive direction. Again, I know that Jake was not too happy for the referee's direction of the match. However, that's why I looked into it, because I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And I haven't even shared this with him yet, so he's going to probably hear it first on the podcast. Dionisi was actually applauded by many by a great approach that he had to the match. Many say actually that he has done his homework by observing the aspect before the match, meaning knowing what the approach of both teams of why is Cittadella so foulish, what does Genoa do bad. And
just quickly to interrupt, Dionisi, of course, the referee for the match on the day.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have said that. And he did his homework, and he understood where he had to be more careful. He cautioned almost all the fouls of Cittadella. They interrupted all those counterattacks. You even said that, where a lot of times, especially on the counterattacks, and it was mostly on the counterattacks, where all these shirts were being pulled. Hence, the red card also for Giraldo was a play caused by a mistake by Perticone. Perticone is usually an attentive and very good player. Mm-hmm. And this time around, he probably had one of the worst matches that I've ever seen, actually, him doing. He lost the ball. Sabelli, in my opinion, the MVP, at par with Gudmundsson, Goodmanson, I would think that the edge goes to Sabelli based on the fact that Goodmanson in the first half was a ghost, while Sabelli's match, in my opinion, was superb. And he absolutely won the duel against Giraudo, which was on his side.
Yep.
And in the middle, recuperating the ball, Giraudo then tripped him down. And that's where the second yellow came in Cittadella, was being 10 men.
Yep.
With the 10 men, Genoa did not gain ownership of the match. There was obviously a lot more control. Not major actions, but a lot more control. And as I said before, since Gorini on the 43rd minute, so this was even before the break, removed Ambrosini, that's where it all changed. The second half started immediately with a crossbar from Goodmanson.
Mm-hmm.
And then what changed everything even further down was the changes done by Gilardino. As you mentioned before, the entrance of Dragus and Puskás. Dragus, he's a player many defined as a player that I think would be amazing in Bundesliga. And Puskás, forget it. He just should disappear, as you said. He did not remove Coda. So that was a clear approach by Gilardino. He wanted to win that match, period.
Very attacking. And the Coda, the defensive substitution I was talking about earlier in the match was not exactly a center back coming on, but Sturaro for Coda at the very end of the match, which I think finally sort of balanced out what ended up being kind of a frenetic couple of minutes towards the end of that second half. Around the 85th is when that sub had taken place. But you're right, it was a lot of firepower on the pitch at the same time for us. When you consider Dragus is there, Coda is there, Goodmanson is there, there was very clearly an intent, to your point, and of course Puskás for Strootman. It was interesting, actually. Would you have expected, especially this was prior to us getting the goal? I mean, yes, of course, Cittadella are down a man, but a little bit of kind of like a ballsy call, no? To take off Domenico Crescito and Kevin Strootman, two of your more defensive players that you're going to have in the midfield, and replace them effectively with two forwards.
Immediately, I was a little bit surprised.
Yeah,
but at the same
weird substitutions, I remember.
But at the same time, as I said to you before, Crescito was interesting, but I think it was pure tactical. When it comes to Strootman, I think he was on a lower day.
It wasn't his best day. Yeah.
It was not his best day. Having said that, that not only changed everything, but that's what led to the goal also was that Gorini chose a third central back that became destructive for Cittadella. What happened immediately after that change, there was a corner, Cittadella loses the ball, Donnarumma did the nth tactical foul to stop the attacking action by the Rossoblu. From the free kick, Perticone makes another mistake. Great triangle, Coda, Goodmanson, goal. Wonderful.
Wonderful football.
What do you think about the goal?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, this is, you've mentioned it throughout the season with the podcast, but I mean, again, seeing Coda with being the assist provider is kind of fun. And to see that kind of inner working, the interplay, this is really like, I don't know if you necessarily call it a hallmark of Gilardino, but this is something we flat out did not see before his arrival. And just seeing some of that teamwork and passing is very clever, very quick, of course, a very kind of deadly finish to the whole thing. So once that goal goes in, I don't want to say it completely takes the edge off the match, because like we mentioned, there were some chances happening, but it did help calm things a little bit.
Let me take advantage of this moment and have a clip that was sent to us by Jake from Città Calcio USA. He was our previous guest on last episode to see his point of view, comments on the actual match, and see what he has to say.
Hey Fabrizio, hey Matt, this is Jake from Città Calcio USA coming to you after the Genoa victory at the Tombolato 1-0. I think Genoa, you guys did deserve to win. After that second half, you guys were all over us. But I will say that the referee was kind of ruined the match in a way. I thought he was very harsh and unfair. There's too many yellow cards for both sides in this game for basically just one-time fouls. And I think he just allowed that to get away. And also, with that too many yellows, the red card for Giraudo at the end of the first half kind of ruined and changed the game. For you guys, it was good because second half, man advantage, it was only a matter of time that you were going to score. But the first half, I did like how Cittadella played. I thought they played with a lot of high intensity and pressure up front. And honestly, I think should have at least scored a goal in the first half if it wasn't for Martinez's saves. But in the second half, the pressure was too much. Cittadella just tried to hold off Genoa, try to get a point, but it wasn't enough. Anyway, it was a good game. I enjoyed talking to you guys and doing the podcast. So thank you once again for having me on. And yeah, only 4 games remaining for you guys trying to get promotion and for us trying to save ourselves from relegation. But thank you guys, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Jake. Always wonderful to have you also on the pod. Thank you for your input. Always appreciate it and love to hear different aspects and different point of views. Thank you. What else do I want to say about the match? We had 2 great actions, actually two chances in the final part of the match. Puskás had an opportunity. I wanted to strangle him, and he definitely showed an excessive amount of selfishness. Him and his hairdo just had to stop.
The hairdo doesn't help. I'll say that.
Does not help. No.
When he has these matches like this, and it just
it's look, buddy, look at your hair. That's why you're doing that.
You got to shave that thing off after you blow a chance like that. That's what's going to happen.
Then an amazing action that led all the way to Dragos on the left. I can still vision it right now, facing the goalie by himself, past the goalie. The ball was almost going to go through the net, and then Del Fabbro saved it a few meters just before the goal line. I think it was his best match that we've seen. The few minutes that we've seen, it was a good match by him.
It seemed like there was something there. That's the way, keep it going, keep doing that type of a thing. And so it was, I like seeing those types of things because you get a feeling that the team is kind of together. They're kind of having a similar mindset as well of being aggressive. And to your point earlier, no, it's not like we completely peppered Cittadella's goal and we had a million shots and we only got 1. But I do think that there is an intention there and a kind of thinking to find those opportunities and to try to take advantage of them as best as they can. And it's always a good thing when you see someone coming in kind of cold like that who's immediately ready to take a risk.
Even the stats say that it's not that there were a humongous amount of shots on goal. It was actually, at least the ones that I'm looking at, it's 2 for Cittadella and 3 for Genoa. But the overall shots off target were 3 for Cittadella and 10 for Genoa, where most of those 10 were actually in the second half. Other stats talked about 20. I don't know why they all we got to 20, but nevertheless.
Yeah, I know. I feel like everybody's a little different on how they count shots in this game, which is
but it's different metrics, right? Anyway. But the showdown from a Genoa's perspective was showing that solidness of the team, which this is the part, especially under the Gilardino era, he brought back that he didn't bring it back. He created, I think, ultimately a very visual, amazing aspect of that solidness, especially from the back. And everybody's claiming there needs nothing to be done on the back if we go to Serie A. And keep in mind, there's still Pajac, which is still I've seen him actually starting to join the Signorini. So that means he's not saying he's ready. I don't know really when his return is, and Haps also returned on the training grounds, but most likely he will only return in the next season.
Yeah.
Having said that, we have that trio at the back that returned back together after the red card from Vogliacco. So Dragos and Bani, and Vogliacco was an amazing, I think among the 3, the best one in this match anyways was Bani.
Yeah.
With that mask. I don't know how people...
No, I know. But... Very LeBron 2008 or whenever he wore that mask for the Heat.
And I have to point out, and I'm sure you remember that, on a side note for Dragusin, in that action where his hair got unleashed and had that Braveheart moment where all his hair and came out was just fantastic.
I love the Genoa post too of the Simba with the long hair and Timon and Pumbaa, and they're all walking. That's it. Type of thing. That actually happened, and I looked up. I was like, wait, is Bocci on? Is that what happened? What's
Bocci did not get called up, but he's back as well. It'll take some time to be reintegrated, but he's definitely on the way coming back. We're gonna have a full house in the back, and I'm not complaining.
I mean, yeah. And then I think we maybe get Vasquez too, if I'm not mistaken, after his spell with Cremonese. I don't think they own him.
It was a straight loan.
And
nothing
hefty either. So it's a lot of guys there. I could understand why people would feel like we're in a pretty decent position there.
Yep. Before we go to the break, I just wanted to say a great win from the Griffoncini that still keeps the lead for the 3 points against the second, which is Parma. While we have 4 matches left, they have 3 matches left. It's still a close call. It's under our control. But closing on that one, I just wanted to say that we'll talk about it with our next guest anyways, but the next one, it will be against Südtirol with, I'm going to say it, we have a possibility to work on winning the championship, by the way.
Wow, you're going to put that out there now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously 2 points is we're right there, but okay.
Next week is going to be very intense because we're going to be facing Südtirol, which is number 4 right now in the ranking. There is a possibility, as I said, for us to win the championship. It is at hand. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It is a possibility. Right. I believe that Frosinone almost conquered the direct promotion because they are 8 points to the third. If you look at math, with a win, it's almost guaranteed. They will be playing against Cittadella, so it's going to be a very difficult. Regina. That's right. So I was thinking about our friend Dan from Regina fans, and he was saying, we'll take care of that anyway, so we'll help you for that. I'm like, okay, all for that. So shout out also to Regina fans. And then lastly, for our friend Jake at Cittadella, it's going to be a very difficult away match at Bari. They're super hungry for points, doom of the playouts. Last week against Cosenza, I think they didn't play a bad match. They're only lacking the results. And I think that's the only thing that they've been missing. And I think it's just a matter of time, as we said also from last pod with Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk about it more, but you just have to look and feel for them a little bit because, of course, also, like, they're not that many points away from being in safety. Cosenza is only sitting a point ahead of them, but Cosenza are playing Brescia, who are also in the relegation zone. They have to play Bari in this next match, and who knows what happens if both of those results go the wrong way for Cittadella. There's still plenty of a few match weeks left to right the ship, and they're not that many points away from getting out of that play out. But you could understand why people would be concerned.
We'll talk a little bit more coming up, but Venezia, I think they're out of the games. Actually, some are commenting that they're going to target now at 4 matches to the end to the last playoff spot. But I'm not saying that it's impossible because on the paper, everything's possible, especially with Serie B. I would not be surprised. All right, we have so much that we could talk about, even from the stadium's perspective, but we should be keeping that topic after the end of the season. Anyways, there's still a lot of time, especially because of the Euros 2032. But let's go to a quick break and we'll come back with our special and super guest from the future. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message. Bentornati sulla Lanterna podcast. We have a special guest again from the future, I said. Why did I say from the future? Welcome back, Enrico from Vietnam.
Hey guys, how's it going? Here it's just gone 9 a.m.
So for us, it's 10 p.m. on Monday, and for you, it's 9 a.m. on Tuesday. I still can't get over that, Matt.
From the future, I love it.
So last time we had you as our guest, Enrico. Thank you for coming back, first of all.
Great to be back.
Genoa's season, since we last talked to you, was at the beginning of the end. It was post Ternana's wonder goal, as you mentioned, just before we went on air, and just before the tie against Brescia, which was the beginning of the end of the Blessing era. How would you define what Genoa has done since?
Remarkable would be one way to look at it. I don't think anyone really expected Gilardino to do what he did. Mm-hmm. Even the club, they were like, F it, we just get Gilardino, okay, because you don't know who to get. There was people saying get Ranieri, get other people.
Remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
But I think Ranieri's done a decent job with Cagliari, so maybe we wouldn't be in the position we are now, but Ranieri might not have been the worst person.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't think anybody predicts turnaround we had, because we lost like 1-0 to Cittadella at home. Basically we've come, the next game will be like the anniversary of, so to speak, of Gilardino. It'll be since his Südtirol, he started with Südtirol, so we kind of come back to that.
Which was a very tough match because they were on an amazing streak, no loss, and we were the first one to stop them. Then they returned back to their positive streak, but we were the only ones back then.
And then everyone thought, oh, is it the new manager bounce? Because sometimes it happens, they get rid of an old coach, which unfortunately for Blessin, like I liked what he did, but it did seem like he lost the dressing room. There was an episode where he came out and attacked the players or the squad, and then the Genoa, the club, kept him on and we give him more time. And I was like, usually when the coach like attacks the players and says they didn't do what I asked him to do, that's like the final nail in the coffin.
You're right. A coach should not be doing that.
No,
Mattia Ramo did not like that very much.
Oh, we know about Mattia Ramo.
And then the whole thing with Marchetti as well.
Oh, fuck, I forgot about that.
I forgot about that too. Thank God I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me about that. Useless, him and his Ferrari that got destroyed.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Was it a season or two ago when that happened? Was that just recently?
He probably destroyed 2 or 3 of them anyways.
Ridiculous. Anyway.
Since then, a lot has happened. So we got the new coach. I went back and I was able to watch Genoa Frosinone.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Yeah, I went back for Christmas and I was there for the game. Froze my balls off because I'd just come back off the plane from Vietnam the day before.
Not prepared.
I had like 3 layers of socks on. I had my leggings on and I was still freezing in the stadium. But at least we won. So it was great. So that was like, okay, we just beat the leaders. We beat them 1-0. It was a very close game. They were playing better than us, but that was a big win for Genoa. I think it gave us loads of confidence. And then since then, we've had one slip up against Parma, I think.
The only
one, yeah. It's been a phenomenal season. Like our attack has clicked, our defense is rock solid.
We were saying even like the match against Cittadella was not necessarily the best performance, but it showed still that solidity, the cohesiveness, especially in all the different ranks and the different air. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention about that match was I heard people saying that at the end of the match, wherever was at the stadium, maybe it was Will from the Gradinata Nord, he was saying, or someone was saying, that they saw Touré at the end of the match cheering. Touré, if you remember him.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say with that is, even though he has never played, barely even gets called up sometimes, he's not that player that gets sidelined and nobody's including him. And he was cheering with the guys of the win against Cittadella. So that shows that he's still part of the group, which I think is important.
I think that's down to Gilardino, because I remember during the way he deals with people, the way he talks, I really like the way Gilardino speaks, like he carries himself. But one thing that I noticed was remarkable, one of the pre-match press conferences just after the January transfer window, and Galdames had been sold or loaned out, but he made the point of saying, I wish Galdames all the best. He's been super professional. Wherever he'll go, he'll be a good team player, and I thought not many managers do that, they've been like, got rid of him, happy, I don't even mention it. But him to take the time to personally thank like a bit part player before a press-match conference is just goes to show the quality of his character and why he's been able to turn around the team.
You're actually right, because I did see a post from Galdames inciting the team, saying it was speaking in Spanish, something, hijo de puta, or something like, go and get them, go get those, something like that. So it must have been like an answer back from that comment from Gilardino. Let's quickly look at the last match day. Let's open with Regina Brescia. We were looking at what was happening there because of Regina trying to catch up in the playoffs area. And actually, Brescia made it through, winning. So that was a 1-2 for Brescia. After that one, we have Como Ascoli, mid-table. Easy for both of them.
I think Como might be at risk of getting in the playouts, I think, no? 42 points, I think.
You're right.
It really could happen. Yeah, they're on 42. You're exactly right. So when you look at it, as you mentioned before, like the margin is kind of insane. A couple of matches going the wrong way and they could be in the wrong place. They're only 5 points from safety. And even Perugia, I think. Perugia plays Spal. It's another match they could also win and consolidate. So you could find them being now all of a sudden 4 points back, and there's another club that's right behind you on top of Cittadella, even if they stay the same. It definitely could happen.
After Como Ascoli, obviously there's the Cittadella match against Genoa, which Genoa wins. It reinforces their lead on the second spot. Frosinone, which was the other match that we were looking at, playing against Südtirol. It was a tripletta, as we say in Italian. It actually ended up stalemate, so it was 0-0. That gave only 1 point to Frosinone, and that's why getting closer to Frosinone. After another battle against mid-table versus bottom of the table. So Modena against Spal. Spal seems on the paper doomed, but they were able to keep a Modena, which we know that they can be that type of feisty team. They managed to do a 0-0. Parma Cagliari, that was another super big match, at least for the playoff spots. Parma wins against Cagliari. I'm surprised, but not at the same time, because Parma has that capability. Cagliari does as well, because the quality in the Cagliari team, we know it. Parma managed actually to win, consolidated Parma's spot for the playoffs, but Cagliari still in there. I don't think they're going to... That playoff spot, I have to say, I'm skipping ahead, but it's a super concentrated group of amazing teams.
Yeah, it's mad.
Whomever is in playoff spots right now, we're talking about the third and the fourth are former Serie C teams, Bari and Südtirol. Then we have Parma, Cagliari, Pisa, and Regina. Who's going to come out of that one? It's madness. One team is going to come out of that.
And Regina been penalized as well. That's hampered their chances.
I heard that perhaps even Parma might get penalized. That might delay the start of the playoffs. So stay tuned for that.
Are they going to get it overturned like Juventus did, which I thought would be ridiculous?
No, Enrico, don't go there because I don't want to talk about that. It's because I'm going to only talk bad. I'm going to talk bad about Serie A if we go there.
I just want to say it's ridiculous. I mean, they took away the points and they gave them back. It's like, come on, be consistent. I would take away the points at the end. Don't just do this flippy-floppy,
All Juventini don't want to hear this, but everyone from everywhere around the world are only saying, it's Italy. What do you expect? And it's just like sad when you hear that. It's just... Anyways, Perugia Cosenza. That was a super fight at the bottom of the table. Perugia is struggling on the playouts, but also Cosenza they were apart with the Cittadella, but because of the tie and goes above the playouts, Perugia, 1 point, still moves. It was an amazing match. Even though it ended 0-0, it was very competitive. I guess it's one of those things that nobody gets hurt, but you still get a point.
Yep.
The other one, which was a huge disappointment from one perspective, but an awake call from the bottom of the table, was Palermo versus Benevento, 1-1. Personally, I was expecting a win from Palermo, especially because they're trying to get those points, catch the last spot for the playoffs, but didn't happen. Benevento is still alive. Palermo is not like a team that does not have the power. It's a team that is awake, but I guess Benevento still has a little breath of air. Next, Pisa Bari. I'm going to skip it because I want to talk it for last. Ternana Venezia, talking about someone that woke up. Ternana for Venezia. What do you guys think about that?
I still can't believe Venezia have been this far flirting with relegation. It's a team that has too much talent to be down at the bottom of the table, and we'll see what happens these last few matches. But I thought to be fair, they've had some results. I can't remember if this was the same one when Poyampano was drinking in the stand, if that was the match before this one.
It was before.
That was the previous week. I feel like when one of your star players does that in the match, then good things are about to happen.
What do you think, Enrico?
Especially after, I thought they might have weakened because, some teams, they drop from Serie A and then they just drop like a stone. And I thought that could happen to Venezia because they sold Ramo, who's billed as this amazing messiah, when it turns out he was a crock of shit, in my humble opinion. Pardon the swearing, but I guess we're allowed to swear now. And then they sold us Haps, who for us he got injured, but he was another quality player. And I was like, they seem to be selling their best players, but they still have some players, quite a lot of players who were in Serie A last year, so they shouldn't be in here. And I have no feelings towards them. If they go up, they go down. I don't really care, but I guess I'm happy for them because they got a cool stadium, which is right on the water. I have to be honest, their away kit last year was pretty cool. I've got to give it to them.
And if I say they won against Ternana, which we know who are they sympathizers for, so that always helps. Last but not least, I want to talk about Pisa Bari match.
Ugh.
Ends 1-2 for Bari. What's your take on that match, Matt?
So I'll be honest with you, and I'll say I did not see the 90-minute penalty, but I've heard everything about it being completely soft, unwarranted, whatever. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it. I'd love to hear you break it down a little bit more. There's some graphics going around on the group chats about the number of times that Bari have had a penalty or have had a red card or something else. To be fair, I do think Serie B on the whole is way more red card friendly than any other league. So I don't know exactly how much those things have merit, but still, it seemed a little questionable from at least my sources. I guess I'll say that much. I don't know if you guys have any other takes on it.
Enrico?
I didn't watch the game either, but I mean, Pisa played with 10 men for almost the entire game. But also, like if you look at Cittadella against us, when there's a mismatch between teams, I think they resort to like playing rugby, because that's essentially what Cittadella was doing to stop us. So like,
yeah.
I looked at the highlights this morning, and the penalty I thought was a penalty. There's people talking about the referee assisting in the play before, but I haven't seen it. I'd like to go back and watch it. It wasn't on the highlights, which I'm not surprised why Serie B cut them from the...
I know. That's the poor part.
Have you seen it?
Yes, I have. That actually happened just for that action that led to the penalty. Fabry was on the attacking side, tried to pass from the left to the right, hit the ref. It went towards forward. So it didn't go backwards, just a little angle, but it still went that way. And then it was in between two players, Pisa and Fabry. Fabry player got the ball, entered in the box, and then and it touched the arm, which was a clear penalty, no question about that. But by the interpretation of the regulation is if the ball is interrupted, touched by the ref, and the ball goes in an attacking, that action should be interrupted and then be let in. If he's in the box, it gives to the goalie. And if it's not, it's the ref that just puts it into whomever, they usually say, okay, who had the ball sort of thing. And it didn't happen. The news of today on Monday, everybody thought it was just going to be a complaint.
Tuesday,
Fabry fans were obviously saying it's all BS, but the whole world at Genoa, we're all over it, saying this is ridiculous. And anyways, long story short is Pisa sent in an appeal, but the sad part, and I tried to look into it, but they basically confirmed what unfortunately I was afraid of, is that until the referee agreed that he made a mistake, it's not going to be accepted.
But even if the referee made a mistake, are they going to replay the game? I doubt it.
Only if the ref says that he was wrong.
Which I doubt it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very rare occurrence. I don't think I've ever heard this, and they won't. I think Pisa are annoyed as well, right? They still, it's not like their season's over. They still want to solidify the playoff spots.
They are at par with Regina on the 7th spot. So the last 2 spots for the playoffs. So let's quickly go to the standings. Frosinone first spot with 68 points. 2 points below is Genoa at 66, still in an amazing run of form. 3rd spot is Bari, so 6 points below at 60. 7 points below is Südtirol at the 4th spot. Closing in is Parma at the 5th spot, which is important to catch that 4th or 3rd spot. Let I remind you.
Yeah.
Is Parma sitting at 51, so 2 points below Südtirol. Cagliari, so we heard that we had the spareggio between Parma and Cagliari at 48. Then we have the last 2 spots for the playoffs, which is Pisa and Regina, both sitting at 46. 9th spot, we have 2 teams, Modena and Palermo. They're both sitting at 44 at 2 points to the playoffs. Then 1 point below, another duo, Ascoli and Ternana. Como, as we said, very close to the playoffs, as we were saying, at 42 together with Venezia now, after the win they had in last match day. Cosenza now sitting on the 15th spot with 38 points. 1 point below them is Cittadella, first spot for the playouts. Then Perugia at the 17th spot with 35 points, together with Brescia, which is the first spot of relegation.
Automatic relegation.
Correct. So Perugia and Brescia are at par, but because of goal differential, Brescia is obviously below them.
Right.
Brescia is catching up on form while Perugia is actually losing it. Spal is sitting at 34 points, so 1 point below the duo Perugia and Brescia at the 19th spot. And last but not least, Benevento, which for now seems the only certain going down, even though they had their tie. They're only 3 points below Spal at last. But Brescia and Spal are not too far from that playout, which still gives them the hope of being able to stay afloat.
Benevento too, they're technically 4 points away from playout. So I mean, it's not like it's not done and dusted. They still have a fighting chance.
Absolutely. It's going to be such a crazy end of this season. It's just like there's so many.
If you remember, Matt, Raffaello told us the last 10 match days are going to be insanity. And he's right.
Yeah, you've got Como, which can go either way. Same with Venezia. They can just as easily go into the playoffs and just as easily go into the playoffs.
Places,
Yeah.
Which brings us to match day 35. Guys, this means it's the last four, I should say. Let's quickly focus on the top three. I did a post on Instagram on the Genoa Club Toronto, and it was showing
the remaining strength of schedule, basically.
Exactly. Shows that the exact opposite of the ranking. So Frosinone has the toughest, Genoa has the second toughest, and Bari has the easiest. It's just a coefficient number that is based on whoever you're facing against. Doesn't mean anything other than what I just said.
Frosinone have also been on the worst run of form. They haven't,
right.
They've won 2 of the last 7 games. They're in the worst run of form.
Raffaello from Cosenza Club New York was telling us that Frosinone eventually had to start to drop points. But you're right, Enrico. If you look at the last 5, they got 6 points. Bari in the last 5 matches got 10, and Genoa 13. Mm-hmm. So among the 3, Genoa's form is undoubtedly the better one. But next, it's a home match for Frosinone against Regina. Genoa is away at Südtirol, and Bari is at home against Cittadella. But if you look at the matches after, Frosinone does not have good teams. They have Pisa after that, as we talked about on an away trip. Yeah. And then at home against Genoa. And then the last one away at Ternana. Genoa, again, they don't have a great calendar. Mm-hmm. Away at Südtirol, which we know what Südtirol is all about. Yep. At home against Ascoli, then away at Frosinone, and then at home against Bari, which is like the worst last 2 that we could have ever gotten.
Yeah.
And for Bari, we have the match at home. Now they have it against Cittadella. So I'm hoping for Cittadella to get some points, mostly for Cittadella more than to be an anti-Bari.
Yeah, I think it will be hard for Cittadella because their squad's been decimated by suspensions, I think. And they picked up something like 200 yellow cards in the last game. Or it felt like 200.
It felt like, that's right.
No fact checks happening.
They have a very difficult...
I'm doing Donald Trump style.
Then they have a very difficult match away against Modena, which is probably their all-in-all, as we talked about in the last pod with Jake. And then at home against Regina, which is super difficult. And an away match, Genoa.
Tough.
It's tough for all 3, honestly. Obviously, the coefficient means something, but doesn't mean anything.
But I'd rather... The last game of the season, I'm happy we're not playing Bari at the San Nicola. We've got them at home, which is where we're stronger.
Actually, you got a good point, Enrico. Like, we, among the top 3, are the only ones to play at home.
And also, there was another Genoa friend of mine, and he made a good point of a potential biscotto coming into play.
Ooh. Do you know what that means, Matt? Biscotto? Oh, that's a term that... So essentially, biscotto means cookie, but what that means...
Cooked twice.
2 teams that decide to have that result... that it's beneficial for both.
Like the famous Genoa-Napoli match from years and years ago.
There you go. For the promotions from Serie B to Serie A. That's right.
Or Genoa-Fiorentina to avoid relegation. There's been quite a lot of them. But yeah, it essentially means it's a cookie or something that's been cooked twice because you need 2 people to participate. And it's quite sweet if you receive it, but not nice if you don't get it. And my friend hypothesis was, and I kind of agree with him, was like, okay, Genoa will this is cursing, but we could presume we draw against Südtirol away from home.
That would be a good result.
That would be a good result. We should win against Ascoli at home. Yeah. And I think Frosinone need 4 points to be automatically promoted and get safe. So there's a potential of having a biscotto on match day 37 between Genoa and Frosinone, where we screw over Bari, which would be lovely if we could do that.
These are all theories, obviously, but...
Theory. But you never know. I wouldn't put it past them because Frosinone have run out of steam. They want to be safe. They've got, like you said, Pisa's not an easy game. Regina's not an easy game. Mm-hmm. We're coming in on form. It's not going to be easy. And plus it's the last game of the season. They might just want to, roll over and agree to a draw would be good for everyone.
No, that's true. The second last of the season, you're talking about match day 37. It all depends how many points has who at that point.
Yeah, too. It is incredible crystal balling because there's so many factors in play.
I feel comfortable saying this only because it doesn't directly impact us. But to the point earlier about this being anything, it's not crazy to imagine Frosinone not getting anything from the next 3 matches that they have. If that were to happen and Bari were to win each of the next 3 matches, they would actually be ahead of Frosinone on points, which is great. And not something I think we would want, obviously, for a couple of reasons. But it's unbelievable. Like, it's definitely, everything could happen right now in this last kind of run. And this match day, I think, is going to be super important too, because I could just keep thinking about the psychological impact of Frosinone being so many points up and being, which I think a week or 2 ago they could have basically assured themselves of promotion, and now all of a sudden, like, they could be in the playoff places if they continue to drop points. They're still like very far ahead of where Bari are. Let's be fair, but it's not an easy.
Yeah, they were running away with it, weren't they?
Right.
I remember you guys on the pod saying, "Oh, well, first place is pretty much guaranteed to Frosinone."
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe a month or 2 ago.
Yeah.
When they had 12 points, right?
Yeah, but like I said, they've won 1 of the last 7 games, which is not really great for. They haven't won in 7 games.
I do want to be honest, and whether together with us, if we are in the top 2, let's be scaramantici, or let's not jinx it. Whether it is Frosinone or Bari, personally, maybe for other Genoani it's a little bit different, but personally, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Whether it is Frosinone or whether it is Bari, ultimately, if it is Bari, it's going to be another Salernitana scenario where we're going to have De Laurentiis trying to sell, and then they're going to give him the extension, and then he's going to still own it. And it's like that ridiculousness, again, talking about the ridiculousness of Italy. Whether it's Frosinone or Bari, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't know about you guys.
I just want us to win.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I know lots of people hate Bari, but I'm a bit indifferent.
Well, they hate Bari simply for the fact that they're pro Sampdoria. That's mainly the reason why. Besides the fact that they're saying we are being favored, and I don't even know how, or trying to catch the second spot. So we are their enemy right now, but it's mostly because they're pro Sampdoria, as like Ternana per se. Having said that, let's look at match day 35 in its whole. So first one I have here is 2 matches coming up on Sunday, April 30th, and then it's besides the first match, which is going to be at a different time. Most of them are going to be playing on May 1st, which in Italy, it's Festa del Lavoro, which is Labor Day. For us in North America, we don't know what that means in May. We know about that in September. But what about in Vietnam, Enrico?
Yeah, it's a big holiday. It's one of the few holidays that poor Vietnamese people get.
In May or in September?
Now they have Liberation Day, which is when or Reunification Day is when they basically kicked out the Americans with Ho Chi Minh. But it's also they celebrate like a home king birthday or something, which is some ancient king. I'm a teacher and I have really good holidays. I've got 2 weeks off. Everybody else has got like 4 days.
Must be nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Happy for you.
Yeah. I'm very happy. But then I have to teach kids all day, so I mean, swings and roundabouts.
It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so match day 35 starting on Sunday, April 30th. We have 2 matches playing at the same time. So the first one is Spal Perugia. Again, another match down looking at the bottom of the table. You have Spal that is trying to catch at the very least anyways, the play outs versus Perugia, which is sitting there at the 4th last. So they're right now sitting on the play outs. So it'll be quite interesting to see who can have the edge playing at Ferrara. Next, Cagliari Ternana. So we know that Cagliari is going to try to hang in there to their playoffs, perhaps trying to catch for that 4th or 3rd spot by winning, because right now they're sitting at a very long 5 points from Südtirol. It's something that they have to understand what they want to do after especially a huge defeat of Ternana, even though they're sitting at the mid-table, quite tranquil, but not really if you think about the fact that 6 points can be eaten quite easily and fast, as we've seen with Serie B. 4 match days left, so it's not that there's 2, there's 4. Next match coming up, so on Monday, May 1st, we have Como Palermo. Como, as we talked before, they're in the middle. They could be dropping down, but they also can be aiming towards the playoffs. Palermo, their main goal is to survive in Serie B. They have never hidden the fact that if they did reach the playoffs, it would not be a bad thing.
If I'm mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've been bought out by the same company that owns Man City.
That's right.
Correct. They're in the city.
Surprised they don't have, I mean, considering the amount of money Man City have.
We talked a little bit with our friend at the Siciliano football, but essentially, long story short, is Man City compared to the 777 is a little bit different with respect to the fact that the City group has Man City as the head and then everything else underneath. So it's like a pyramid. While with the 777, they're all independent. So the report among the teams is quite different. I don't know if you wanted to add anything different there, Matt.
Well, no, I mean, I totally agree with what Enrico's saying. Like, you would think if Citigroup were buying your club, holy shit, we're going to be in the money now. And I think what Fabry's saying is kind of like, well, not exactly, because there's a structure and there's a hierarchy and how these things work. I still personally, like, if I'm being totally honest about 777, I don't totally believe that whole thing, which is a whole separate deal, which we don't have to get into. I don't know. I think I recall an earlier conversation where like there was like a bit of sort of stability and work that was done this season. I think that ownership change might have happened in like either just before the season or perhaps even like a week or two into the season. So I would expect if it doesn't happen this year, maybe you do see them dominate more in the following season if they don't make it out. But it is a bit
good for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, we'd have another contender. Because I mean, to be honest, with the amount of money they have, like, and considering how much they spend on Man City, like the money they spend on 1 week salary for like one of the best players, let's say Jack Grealish, they could pretty much buy like 20 Serie B players.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how much money.
I was talking about Anthony Barbagallo, which was our friend from the Sicilian football, and he was telling us that even though they are under the City group, it doesn't mean that they're receiving money left, right, and center. Their goal for this year after the Serie C was to remain in Serie B and next year build it towards upwards.
Have you heard that 7-7 partners might be buying Everton?
We did talk about it in the first half. Actually, we just opened it up talking about that because it was kind of the news, right? It was quite all over the news actually today or yesterday for you. I don't know.
Enrico, what are your initial thoughts on that? I'm curious.
And it seemed a bit like a poison chalice to be picking up because the club are in disarray. I mean, it's similar to how Genoa really protests against the board. Mass fan discount, and they'd be like, "Lovely, we like that." But I think it's just if they can buy it, there's a lot more money in the Premier League, so maybe they're seeing it as
that's what Matt was saying,
as an investment opportunity. Because unfortunately, Serie A, we're Genoa with the oldest club, but Genoa, and like we've mentioned on the chats, like the stadiums are half empty, they're falling apart, we're not getting full attendances. It's not exactly a promising business model. Whereas if you get like Everton and manage to keep them up, or even if you go down to the Championship, you still got full stadiums, the TV rights are amazing, you get loads of money. And Josh Wonder, I'm pretty sure, likes money, because I mean, if he needs to powder his nose, he'll need it.
Yeah, those payouts are insane. I mean, even like the rights for the championship are really good from a broadcast perspective. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm with you. It's hard to not look at it and feel like this is kind of dangerous, but at the same time, it could be beneficial, I suppose, in the long run, especially if worst case, if they go down, they come back up, and then you would hope that kind of wealth gets redistributed a little bit among the other clubs. But
do they get the parachute money similar to how we have if you drop down? Yeah.
I think it lasts like 3 years or something. It's a ridiculous sum. It's in it, maybe not 3 years, but there's like a multiple year payment thing for it. They actually, I think, so you hear all the time about the play-in game from the championship being the most wealthy match in football, but technically actually the biggest payouts happen as soon as clubs get relegated because of that same reason. You're competing with Man City for players and budgets and stuff, and all of a sudden, like, you can't financially, clubs could go bust basically if they didn't get that type of money back. So
you see the amount they spend in the Premier League is insane on players. I think the only one that competes in Serie A is Juve, and when you look at the January transfer markets, the Serie A is completely and utterly dwarfed by the Premier League. They're just spending silly money.
That could be a podcast just on its own. Talking about stuff like that. Yeah,
it's done wonders for the Premier League because it's spread their.
We've said that throughout Serie A and Serie B Lega, both of them being separate. They just need different approach on the rights for TV worldwide in order to catch up a little bit, at least with Premiership.
Yeah, because here in Vietnam, to give you an example, like all the people our age, and they're like Vietnamese, they're like, oh, where are you from now? And they talk, oh, my favorite football player is like, oh, like Del Piero, Totti, Baggio. There's just some guy today was like, oh, my favorite, guess who my football idol is? Like Del Piero, Totti, Baggio. He's like, Baggio. Yeah. But like all the younger kids today, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man United, Liverpool, they barely know Italian football. They know like Juventus, but it's nowhere near as big an impact as people. And that's come down to the TV rights. And it's just bad for Italian football as a whole.
Yeah.
So let's go back to our match day 35.
Oh, yes.
Brescia Cosenza. So Brescia is at the third last spot. So their run of form is being on the recuperating side. In fact, from the very drop bottom now, they're third last at par, actually, in points with Perugia, which is in the playouts, playing against Cosenza, which we just talked about just a little bit before, that now they're outside the playoffs area. So that will be quite the interesting match between the two. And that's at Brescia. Next one, roll of drums, is Südtirol Genoa. So we'll talk soon after this with respects to what our predictions and what our expectations is from this match. Then we have Benevento Parma. So Benevento, we talked about the tie against Palermo, and at Benevento, it'll be Parma going down to Benevento and trying to maintain that spot at the playoffs in order to make sure that they maybe even reach the fourth spot.
And Benevento, the last roll of the dice.
It is.
Essentially. Sorry to interrupt, but just again, it's all to play for, isn't every single game? So
every single game, there's something to play for, which is incredible. And that's why a lot of people are not going to agree with me and they're going to hate me for continuously saying this, but I think that they should introduce some level of playoffs and playouts in Serie A as well, because it gives that interest. Otherwise, you're going to have the Serie A table where, I don't know, Bologna all the way down to Empoli, that nobody cares about winning or losing because nothing's going to happen anyways.
Right.
Yeah. But having said that, we would have been in a playoff zone a lot. So in the past 5 years.
So if you look at it from
careful what you wish for.
No, that's true. If you look at it from what we would have had, I agree. But if you look at it from a spectacle perspective, or perhaps based on the fact that there was some sort of playoff or playouts, would have been different too, right?
Just been, I'd quite like to say it's been quite fun season because finally we've been winning again, which hasn't happened for, it's been nice. Like you look forward to the weekend games. You're like, oh, yes. Whereas before you'd be like, oh, right, here we go. Inter Genoa 5-1. Okay, lovely.
I know if we do go back to Serie A next year, I don't expect anything drastic, but I'm sure it's going to be something different compared to what we were used to, at least in the last 3 to 5 years of Serie A.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was toxic, wasn't it?
Extremely toxic. You're right.
Yeah.
The other side is feeling the burden right now.
Yeah.
Of toxicity of Serie D.
Yeah, it's so good. So nice.
It's payback. It's karma. Yeah. So after Benevento Parma, we have Bari Cittadella. So we briefly mentioned about it before when we were talking about Bari's next matches. Bari trying to catch up to Genoa on the second spot because they're sitting on the third spot, 6 points down. But Cittadella is super hungry, as we said a little bit earlier. They haven't been winning since that Tenana win on the 25th of February. They're definitely going to try their best. It might be
they're definitely still fighting.
But they're definitely still fighting. And we saw that Bari, under circumstances, they're not doing well either, right?
Yeah, because they drew at home to Como, which is not a great result for them. I think Cittadella decimated by suspensions. It's going to be very tough.
Very difficult.
But I am certainly rooting for them.
Yes.
We all are. Next is Ascoli Pisa. So a mid-table team against Pisa, which we saw that drastic loss that they just reached at the 95th minute once again with the penalty, with the recourse and whatnot. Definitely hungry for points in order to stay afloat within respects to the playoffs. So it'll be quite an interesting match. All three of us actually said all matches are important. Next is Venezia Modena. So if Venezia is going to try to catch the last spot for the playoffs, they're going to try to do that win. But the same happens and applies to Modena anyways, right?
Because if Venezia win, they leapfrog Modena. Because
absolutely.
42, if they win, they'll go to 45. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of teams in between, but they'll overtake Modena for sure.
Last but not least, super important. For the first time, I'm going to root for Pippo Inzaghi. Frosinone Regina.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. So what do you say, Matt?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you kind of think Frosinone are bound to get one back at some point, but this is a really important match for Regina too, of course. I mean, they really need to make sure that they're going to stay in the play-in positions and everything else. I know, Regina maybe haven't also been on the most sparkling run of form. I kind of like them.
They won 2 of the last 4 games, which is
certainly better than what Frosinone have been experiencing. So I don't know. I kind of like Regina a little bit in this match. Obviously, we'll be rooting for them, but we'll see. I think it's going to be a close one, maybe like a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something.
For all these games, it comes down to nerves for everyone, because
agreed.
It seems to be this. Like, we've been suffering from nerves, because if you looked at the first half an hour against Cittadella, we were kind of shaky.
Yeah.
Carmo, we
we
were
were too.
all over the place, but that's maybe because we didn't have the defense, a full defense. So it's really good that we've got our defensive lineup, so our solidity will be there. But I thought Cittadella might nick the opening goal.
Me too.
So shout out to Dan, because Dan from Regina fans, he's saying we'll take care of it. So I'm totally listening to him and trusting him for that.
I'm gonna bet the house on that.
Even if in theory everything can happen, right? Because even for us, and we'll talk about it just right after this, but our match against Südtirol is not going to be that easy. But even if they did tie, it still keeps it open, right? If we were to, I'm just saying theoretically here, if we did lose and they did win, it's going to make it more complex. All right.
Yeah.
Predictions. Enrico, you first.
I think against Südtirol, I think it will be a draw. I'm hoping for a victory, obviously, but I think the most likely result we're going to get is a draw. Having said that, Südtirol have 1 win in the last 7, so they haven't won since 2-0 against Spa, which is 5 games away.
Very true.
Nerves, and I don't know if we can kind of avoid them like scoring first, we could get a draw. But I'm fearing it's something against Parma might happen, because that's the last time we capitulated, is when we went behind first. So we haven't seen. Matt, we haven't seen Genoa come back from a goal down that I can remember.
That's
since
true.
Maybe against Ternana, we haven't. So we have to see what's going to happen.
I actually hadn't thought about the fact that we really haven't typically responded that well from going down. But I was just going to kind of add on to your point about, like the one thing I guess in our favor in this case, perhaps I'm kind of knocking on wood, is at least Südtirol have not been the most clinical in front of goal lately. They've not scored in their last 4 now. Yeah. Going back to the last match they won actually against Spal. So I should say they haven't scored in their last 3. They did score against Cagliari. So 3 matches on the dot, no goal scored. I think it's going to be also a nervy game. I do think Genoa will pull ahead, but I don't think it'll be more than probably like a 1-0 or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, Südtirol have had that kind of magic all season. This is, to Enrico's point earlier, like I think when we were talking about Südtirol earlier in the year, and we are all kind of scratching our heads and kind of bemused, surprised, happy to see them where they were in the table, there was sort of this element, which I know this is sort of like a lazy analysis, but it's just kind of like, oh, well, they're this far up in the table, they're just kind of playing football, they're not really thinking about it, they're just enjoying themselves. And like, now this is a time where they really need to continue, because they're on the verge of getting out of even those top 2 play-in places, which means they'll have another game or another matchup to get past in order to make it to promotion. I think you will see, to Enrico's point earlier, nerves maybe a little bit more in this game. Südtirol are not a team that gives up many goals, so I think it's going to be probably a tighter margin one, but I do think Genoa will probably come out on top.
I hope.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that approach. I have a similar view to Enrico's point. Südtirol has not been showing that much of a form. Perhaps they're tired of the fatigue, the nerves, the pressure. Keep in mind that 3rd and 4th spot is very important, because that guarantees you less games for the playoffs.
Yes.
And it brings you closer to that aim for Serie A. Is Südtirol ready or not? We don't know. We don't know too much about what that the ownership on that side is looking for. I'm not saying that they're saying, calm down, let's don't go to Serie A. That's not what I'm saying. I'm thinking, look at their stadium. It's even smaller than the Cittadella one. 5,500 spectators can go to that stadium. 700.
Will they even be allowed to get into Serie A? Do you need like a minimum number of?
700 were given to the ospiti, so the guests, and they were sold out even not within minutes. If they were to go to Serie A, they're already talking about different type of stadiums between Trento, I think, or Verona, or others like that, until they are able to build something bigger for the amount of time that they have in order to expand. Expansion, they have such an open field. All they need to do is expand or just create one area of the stands, and that'll bring it to the minimum capacity, at least for the time being. But are they able? Will they? I don't know. It's all up to what they are going to be achieving. So to the match itself, the Nerves are going to be the winner of the match. The first one that is going to score could be the winner. With our track of record, the defense, we are still a solid team, even though it can be a tripleta based on the Nerves. And tripleta means whoever's at home can win. There can be a tie, or the away team can be winning. I still think that Genoa has that edge, and the starting 11 is just like phenomenal. And I love how Gilardino is able to read those matches based on whatever's happening on that pitch. And Gilardino has shown to us that he's great. And so I think that we have the possibility. There is a possibility also for a tie, but I think we're going to be winning. I didn't ask you, Matt, who you think was going to be scoring.
I was just thinking that too, because I feel like I've said Coda for the last several matches, but I do I just still feel like it's probably going to be him again. Like I think,
and I'll second that.
Yeah, I mean it's a common expectation. But yeah, a lot of reason to look forward to this match, and for anybody who is kind of circling and keeping a really keen eye on Frosinone Regina, not to go back to that one, but I think one thing on the interesting side there, which I was just kind of doing some research and looking up, but if you guys recall, Mulattieri, who's kind of a younger kind of forward player for them, he's actually been out the last 3 match weeks, slated to come back sometime in early May, so we'll probably miss the Regina match. They've not won since he's been out. So it'll be interesting to see in the title run, he's already had 12 goals, 4 assists this season, how that affects these next several games with him when he comes back. Are they going to bring him back earlier? Like what happens there? So probably nothing we're going to see. I suppose it's a weird potential possibly that he comes back this weekend, but will be interesting to see with the games happening obviously on May 1 when his return will be and what that will look like for them at the run-in for the rest of the games. But first and foremost, we have to focus on Südtirol and a difficult match, and hopefully we get a good result.
Absolutely. So before we go to a wrap, Enrico, thank you very much, first of all, for coming again on our pod.
Thank you for having me.
Did you end up founding the Genoa Club of Vietnam?
I knew this was a question. So yes, I made an email address. I prepared myself. I made an email address and I'll share it with you guys. I've still yet to receive any email, which is hardly surprising. But I'll give you, it's genoa.club. I wrote it down, genoa.club.vietnam@gmail.com. Because unfortunately, I refuse to use Instagram.
I think it's a good thing. Stay away as long as you can.
Yeah. So I'll send it to you in the WhatsApp message. You can share it if you want. So I have made a Genoa Club. For any lonely Genoano who happens to be in Vietnam or Saigon, can send me a message and I'll reply promptly, because I probably get one email every year.
You never know. Also, a lot of Genoani may go to Vietnam. You never know that.
It's a nice place. I'm actually on holiday now to, in the first time where you uploaded a picture of the Hans Bridge, the Golden Bridge. Mm-hmm. I'm very close to it on my holiday.
Oh, nice.
The other thing I heard you guys talking on the previous podcast was about the shirts. And I've actually sent the guy a couple of messages and he hasn't
replied.
He's just gone. He's disappeared. Yeah, I think he's busy doing something else, because I remember him telling me it was a side gig, his shirt making bits. So I need to find another one. I haven't had much luck. It's very hit and miss. You can either get ones which look really good, or you get ones which, remember, like the ones you used to be able to buy in Italy on the street, like which are made of plastic bags.
I know.
Essentially.
Well,
you wear them and they'd be all scratchy and
Mind you that the interest for kit from Serie A is quite different compared to a Serie B team. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, Castor seems out the door and Kappa seems to be the next one.
Oh, yeah?
Or returning anyways.
Maybe we'll see the new designs from Enrico's Kitman first.
I know, right? Enrico, keep us updated, please.
Yeah, we'll hopefully he gets because I got some. The last thing I bought from him was an NBA jersey.
Oh yeah, they came out pretty good.
They were. I don't have it with me, but they look really, really good. Like they look perfect. Like I showed them to some American friends. I'm like, yeah, this looks like the real deal. Couldn't tell the difference. And it was like again €5. I can't remember what I was going to say now about the. Never mind, it'll come to me. Yes, that's right. I went to the Genoa store when I went home for Christmas, and it was disappointing, to be honest. The third kit looked nice, but when you actually picked it up, you're like, oh, it doesn't look very good. The quality looked a bit. So if Castore leave, I wouldn't be too sad.
Yeah,
but it's weird because usually they have like a multi-year contract, don't they?
I have to think that like this could only happen if they do go back to Kappa, because Kappa probably already was so far down the line of making the kit for this season that they just basically bring it into next season's template or whatever. Because they ended that contract in a really weird way. Like they still had a year left to go, and they terminated, and then it's Castore, and then I don't know.
But again, Castore have been like I've got Newcastle. They've got a big portfolio. Yeah. They're arguably bigger than Kappa. I mean, Kappa's got the Italian market, but Castore are huge on the rugby market.
Yep.
And they're quite big in the Premier.
I wonder what happened there. I don't know. Out the door is almost obvious based on also the discounts that have been happening on the e-store and whatnot. But
although I'm still waiting on my delivery, which was I hit the tracking number and I got this tracking number doesn't exist. I'm like, okay, that's good. This is very.
That's reassuring. That's what a lot of complaints were also about Castore.
So we'll see. Hopefully it works.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a wrap, everyone. Thank you once again, Enrico, for being our fantastic guest, returning guest, mind you. And
thank you for having me.
I will, of course, definitely share your email. So anyone, Genoano or not, that needs assistance, help, or questions about Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh, or future can reach out to our friend
anyone but Sampdoria fans. They can go do
that's right.
No, that's right, Enrico. I should have said that. I should have said Sampdoria fans or sympathizers may be considered, but not really. But no, again, thank you for joining us, for always being with us also on the chat.
Can I just congratulations on setting up that chat? It's been really good to have an all English chat. Really nice little community.
It's actually I didn't appreciate it until Fabry had put it together too, because it's literally the only one. Every other one I'm going to Google Translate and then typing back my response in some broken Italian.
General Club UK that they have an English chat. I don't know. I'm not part of it, so I don't know how often or how much of English is spoken, but nevertheless, this is the international one. That's the UK one. So let's leave it at them. Ours is the international one. And again, thank you for actually bringing that up. Anyone that wants to join the chat, you're more than welcome to. Just reach out to us and actually send us a message both on any platform from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Drop us a like, any comment, whatnot. And always and forever, never forget, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.